Hello everyone. I want to do some more reading from my new book, Intense Design. I'm going to read from chapter 8, which is about the Skunk Works environment. You might even hear a little rain in the background to add to the ambiance. So this is talking about the Blackbird development, not the Stealth Fighter or the Sea Shadow. So this is, again, a reading from chapter 8. In designing the A-12, which is the first Blackbird, 5 aerodynamicists who did most of the initial design work shared an office. Another group of 4 structural engineers were in an adjoining office separated by a door. As the design came together among the 5 aerodynamicists, they conferred frequently with the structural engineers, prompting the removal of the door. These 2 groups had different sub-goals. Namely, the aerodynamicists were focused on airflow and performance, while the structural engineers were concerned with the airplane's strength. Removing the door and the subsequent enhancement of collegiality described by Ben Rich, the president of Skunk Works, or would-be president of Skunk Works during the Stealth Fighter time, led to a cooperative environment which he likens to the Russians and Americans meeting up at the end of World War II. After this rapid and cooperative development of the basic airplane design, the group's work became more frustrating because of the numerous problems they encountered as they attended to design details. They had to solve all this problem, and it goes on about problems with landing gears and titanium and that sort of thing. The physical amenities were sparse. The groups were crowded together in a corner of an old bomber factory. They had back-to-back desks where privacy was surrendered to incessant kibitzing, teasing, brainstorming, and harassment. That's a quote from Rich. The groups working on different parts of the project had undeclared leaders, sometimes referred to as deans, who gained authority based on technical knowledge. The designers were so tightly packed that Rich, who headed a 3-man aerodynamics group at the time, was so close to the dean of the 8-man structural group that he could actually reach out through the open doorway and shake his hand. This congenial atmosphere reflected the group's maintenance tasks typical of mature, productive groups. And I talked about group development earlier. However, the physical environment was not as conducive to creative thought as some researchers asserted, as described previously. So moving on a little bit into Chapter 9, skipping a bunch of things. I'm going to read about Thomas Hansen, who wrote a self-published book about the inside workings of Skunk Works, which is great. I think people should tell their stories. So Hansen's assertion that bureaucracy, politics, and other trappings of large corporate structures would harm Skunk Works culture is reflected in Neil Goldsmith's observations of the organizations modeled after Skunk Works. Goldsmith, the president of the policy research firm, stated, quote, "A Skunk Works is a protected and culturally antithetical body for purposes of innovation. The need for their existence stems from the fact that large organizations are, by their nature, slow to react to changes in the business environment," end quote. Goldsmith's generic use of Skunk Works is used in some writings to describe groups outside of Lockheed Martin who have attempted to duplicate the Skunk Works environment and culture. One of Lockheed Martin's principal competitors, McDonnell Douglas, now owned by Boeing Company, developed an advanced design group called Phantom Works, and this was an homage to the Skunk Works name. Many other companies have also incorporated successful Skunk Works in their operation. These companies develop small teams of young people headed by a highly regarded senior person. These teams are then given the goal of designing a new product and then admonished to disregard any corporate cultural norms and standard practices that might impede their work. And that's a cited assertion there from Tushman. Ben Rich, the president of Skunk Works for a period, describes the root cause of the Skunk Works engaging culture, stating that Skunk Works became, quote, "the most successful advanced project company in the world by hiring talented people, paying them top dollar, and motivating them to believe they could produce a Mach 3 airplane like the Blackbird a generation or 2 ahead of anyone else," end quote. Thomas Hansen, who worked there as well, noted that the type of people he worked with at Skunk Works were the type who would, quote, "work in obscurity if the company provides the freedom and resources to allow the person to be creative," end quote. However, because their motivation was disconnected from ego fulfillment, Hansen opined, quote, "these people will frequently wander away if the company does not provide this environment," end quote. Kelly Johnson maintained morale and camaraderie within the organization by explaining all engineering changes and inviting all employees to witness the first flight. Johnson stated, quote, "I owe you a challenging, worthwhile job, providing stable employment, fair pay, a chance to advance, and an opportunity to contribute to our nation's first line of defense. I owe you good management and sound projects to work on, good equipment to work with, and good work areas," end quote. Rich believed, again, this is Ben Rich, who followed Kelly Johnson as president of Skunk Works, believed that the principal factors that promoted creative design success at Skunk Works were: 1. The involvement of the technically competent leader who was authorized to make decisions, and 2. A work environment dominated by highly motivated employees. With these two features in place, the Skunk Works will endure and remain unrivaled for advancing future technology. That's a quote from Ben Rich. These talented people were: 1. Risk takers, and 2. Generalists. That is, they had broad technical backgrounds. Another unique feature of the Skunk Works is that none of the senior management of this high technology company held doctorate or management degrees, but all had bachelor or master of science degrees in engineering. This is uncommon in traditional organizations where sales and management savvy is at least as important as the product. One of the edicts that permeated Skunk Works is the notion that a design does not need to be perfect. Both Johnson and Rich held this view. Rich believed that, quote, "the only areas where the final result must be 100% are safety, quality, and security. That final 10%, striving toward maximum perfection, costs 40% of the total expenditure of most projects." This was not a unique revelation of Skunk Works, but was an important insight to articulate to Skunk Works employees in order to keep their projects progressing rapidly. So, I'm going to move on and talk about the legacy of Skunk Works here in the next video, but you can see what they've got are people that are technically competent and are wise decision makers running this small group. They kept people physically close together, didn't worry about the environment as much as the people, I guess you could say. The environment was not plush. They recognized that perfection was expensive, which was something I talked about before. And they kept people motivated, and they empowered people and all these sort of things. So we'll look at the legacy next time. Thank you.